就是一个是第一个是 empathy，
对，
然后还有一个是最后那个 lost self awareness，然后我们找了2个就是游戏主播，他有把他的表情然后放在那个游戏影片里，所以我们可以观察他的那个表情，了解他是不是失去了
self awareness。好，还是我就先带，然后反正第3节课给你们之后，就简讲，又像是又像是复习一样，他们就又可以活络。我觉得这样应该没有问题，就不用你们在我在你这样。没有，因为过去的都是学生直接带导，就是大概带个。会带3堂课，可是我都会在旁边一直讲这样。可是有时候带3堂课导读，就是有的组别效果很好，有的组别效果不好，所以才会全部都干脆我自己来上。对，但是反正第3节课就交给你，然后我还是会在旁边。哇，这桌子好恶心，
黏黏的，因为你很湿。
对啊。
老师，你要赢那个分享画面吗？
好啊，
直接开始分享。
这分享画面就看不到我。哎，有人在线上吗？
我刚刚有拨号给大家，然后
还要拨号给大家，
就是会提醒他们加入，可以来上课了这样。
你们先去搜那个
consent form。
对
，OK。
那个什么明杰
他退，
对他退课，
他就是 Sebastian，
对他就是 Sebastian。下礼拜是线上课程，下礼拜是线上课程，你们都有看吗？还蛮好看的吧
？Yes。蛮清楚的。
就是很清楚啦，画质什么都很清楚。
可是有时候他那个
学生讲话。
不是他有那个，他有一部分是在展示他的那个 remote control， 然后
真的吗？
对，然后可是他的画面还在 PPT， 就是他没有，就是
对，他在讲那个 controller 的时候，因为我跳过那部分。好，了解。然后呢，就照不到他在干嘛。
对，就是他有2个东西在。
对，他有跟大家讲，他说像我那个手上什么什么的，对。然后我就想说，那我又看不到，我就跳过，想起来了。但是其他地方都还蛮清楚，连讨论也都还蛮清楚，还蛮酷。他们那边就有10几个学生，跟我们差不多。James. Oh, the player one. You're everywhere. I believe you can get them. Okay, guys. Welcome to come back to the class. So I haven't seen you for like 2 weeks, right? Did you guys have a really good, like 2 really good long holidays? Really good, right? Long weekends, and so it's really great that we happened to have the online class last week, so you guys actually have a longer holiday, right? So that's really nice, and I enjoy that kind of autonomy. So I also watched the video last Monday, and I really enjoyed it because I can control the speed, and I can get to watch it. And Nick Bowen is actually a very good lecturer and a very good teacher. So last week he talked about the demand model. So actually he developed that demanding model, and he and I were going to do some studies and test that model throughout different contexts in the following years. So can you still remember what kind of dimensions in the demanding model? So why I put his class in last week, because remember the first week we talked about the development of video games and all things, and in two weeks before, like we went to the lab and played some games, and then last week he talked about what is interactivity in digital games. So interactivity is actually a very unique dimension. Sebastian, do you need to get another?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, third time.
Yeah.
What happened to those signatures?
The format was wrong or something.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So where do I sign?
Just
here.
And that's all. And I'm out of your hair.
Oh,
For this
it's
semester.
well. No, we're happy to see you.
Yeah.
We're very happy to see you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you next year.
Yes.
Well, good luck for this one.
Yeah.
Bye. Yeah, so remember what kind of dimension? So interactivity is actually unique characteristic in video game that distinguish itself from other media. So so what is interactivity? If we because Nick Bowman, he defined interactivity as a demanding experience from audiences and players. So Noah, did you have the chance to check out the online class?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I just want to make sure that you know where to go and what to look for. So what are the dimensions? Can you still remember?
Cognitive.
Yeah, physical, social, and emotion. It's actually very similar to the character identification dimensions that we're talking about today. So he actually positioned interactivity as a process that you need to give feedback, and the program will determine what kind of content will present to you based on your prior action. So it's a reciprocal processes. So do you think that Siri or Google Voice Siri, do you think that Siri is interactive?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you ask questions and they will respond to the answer for you. They will check the online for you.
But you have to push a button to do that.
Well, yeah, that's the process. But I mean, does it reply to your prior questions? I mean, for me, Siri is only one-to-one, like one question, one answer. And you pop another question, does it really remember what questions you're talking about? No. Yeah, so actually that kind of interactivity is limited degree of interactivity. You can say it's a partial interactive, just limit to that one-to-one session. But what we're talking about here is that interactivity, it has to be like interpersonal communication. For example, I will remember what you said like 10 minutes ago. So I still remember that, and I can pull that conversation into now and then talked about it. For example, we were talking about what kind of content they're going to present in the third period of this class. So I still remember it, but Siri cannot. So in the video game, you can say, movie can be interactive if they present different choices for you to say, hey, if you're the character, what kind of, do you want to go left or go to the right? So you choose that. It's partial partial interactive. You chose it, and then it presents to you your chosen, direction of the plot that's going to develop, but that's partial. So in video games, you can see it's actually very different. That kind of interactivity is continuous. So it's continuous and reciprocal process and processing all your prior actions. Mass Effect, that video game Mass Effect, there is 1 and Mass Effect 2, and you can actually export all your Mass Effect 1 content into the second one, and it will have all your data in the first generation. So the second generation of the story will continue based on your first generation's behavior. That would determine how you look based on your morality. Like if you're immoral in the first generation of Mass Effect, it's actually recording right now, right? Okay. Okay. So and it would present, because what you've done is very immoral. So the second generation, you look really ugly, look like a bad person. So that kind of character and that kind of characteristic can only exist in video games. So the video game interactivity has to include AI and all the programming and different choices to really present to you different kind of choices based on your behavior. So AI is very important in video game. Okay, so anyone online, I just want to be interactive to you as well. Let me check. Anyone online? How can I check?
Here. This one.
Oh, yeah.
And then here.
This one?
Yes. Oh, yeah, she's here.
Oh, only one person online?
Yes.
Okay, what about the others? Okay, Huang Chen is here. He's present. Oh, cool. He just finished his quarantine. Do you want to introduce yourself? Because he's online in the previous weeks, and now he can be in person in this class. Just briefly introduce yourself and say hi to everyone.
Hi everyone. but I just introduced myself to discuss something.
Oh yeah, you introduce yourself online. I'm sorry.
Yes, so
I'm a bad AI.
how can I say? As you can see, I'm. This is me. Okay, that's all.
Oh yeah, welcome to the class. Okay, so you still have one more. You still have 1 week to visit the lab and play some VR applications. And because last week, in 2 weeks before, you didn't have the chance to play those games with us. So did you guys enjoy that week? Is VR interactive based on the definition? It's very interactive, right? And you actually are very autonomous in the VR environment. You get to choose where to go and what to do and what to pick up and all the things. So it's the second time that we visit the lab, we're going to try like VR tourism. I'm sorry, I touched this and connected. Yeah, we're going to try different things like education and advertising and promotion, marketing, and different things. So that's the second week. Okay, so if we define interactivity as a demanding experience, it actually demands your input. For example, when you play games, you feel with the character, so you feel the emotion. So it's emotional demanding or it's cognitive demanding for sure, and sometimes it's social demanding, but sometimes, for example, if I'm just playing Candy Crush, the social demanding is very limited to that little girl in the background, right? It's actually not social interaction at all. And if I'm just playing, some Sudoku, is not social at all. There's no social character. And the fourth one is physical. It's there's a exertional and also the physical itself. So some of the content really require you to be very physically demanding. So some people, they do not like to move. They just avoid all those kind of games like that's physically demanding. For example, if I ask you to play VR for a long time, is it a good option for you? Like, have to run and walk around, and for a long time, maybe it's not a good option for those people. So, physically demanding, it really is. It depends on your needs and need satisfaction. Okay, so today we're going to talk about character identification. So, talking about character identification, can you guys share with me any of just one character that you can think of in video game context that you have actually feel with and you really love that character and you identify with the character. So we're going to talk about the relationship between the player and the character. Sometimes we just play the game. We never think about our relationship with the character. It's an odd question for normal people. When we're just playing the games, we never think about what's my relationship with Mario. It doesn't make sense because Mario is just Mario. It can be a tool for you to enjoy the game, right? It's just a representative character that Mario has to save the princess or something like that. So can you think of anyone that you really identify with? Here, when we talk about identification, sometimes we confuse it with that you actually agree with the character or you like the character or you feel like you want the character to be your model. So I want you to really use the definition presented in the paper. If you guys read the papers, in the paper, what did Kohan say? What is character identification? Okay, let's talk about the definition first, and then I'll ask you to share that character that you have identified with before. So what is there are 3 papers in this week. So the first one is presented by Kohan. Kohan, he talked about your audience's relationship with the character in movies, in books, and in novels. Those are passive media if you compare those with video games. So in those situations, you look at the character and feel with this emotion and look at the character with the story development and all and the plot. So what is character identification for Kohan and for you in the paper? Oh no, have you read the papers? Guys, it's a seminar, so you have to read the papers. I have, lower your burden. You don't need to, lead the papers. I'm the one who's leading the paper, but I need your help to read the paper, basically. Okay. Yeah, I know you're trying hard to find that definition paragraph in the paper right now. Or do you know which paper I'm talking about right now? It's this one. It's Jonathan Cohen defining identification. Yeah.
Yeah, there are the 4 dimensions of it, right?
Yeah, but if you can use your own word to just define it, what it is, put it in one sentence or.
Okay. Yeah, the process of connecting with the character's motivations and personality or feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel something in them that you also see it in yourself, maybe.
Yeah, so simply put, you are that character. Like when you identify with a character, it's not because it can be because that you like the character or whatever the other, or maybe it's because you're similar with the character. But those are the factors influencing your this process. So identification is actually a process that you feel like you are the character in the story. So when you feel that, you will lose your self-awareness. So that's a basic assumption of this theory. Is talking about that you are losing yourself and merging yourself with that character. So in the relationship between you and the character, you gradually losing yourself and merge with the character. That's defined by Cohen, but it's different when we talk about that in the video game, which we were going to talk about later. So if we use this kind of definition, what kind of character can you think of in the games? Have you really feel like that when you play games, do you feel that you are the character most of the time? Really? Like what? What kind of games and characters?
I grew up playing a lot of Donkey Kong.
Oh.
And I really like Diddy Kong.
Oh, like the monkey, the King Kong.
Yeah, I thought he was quirky and like fun.
But is he the character that you can control? No, he's
Sometimes you can switch out.
Oh really? I thought he's the enemy who's throwing rocks to you.
No, is that not the smaller?
Oh, it's the smaller one.
Yeah,
okay, so it's a company.
Companion. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's like your friend or something.
Yeah.
But you can identify with that monkey?
I don't know. In some of the games I played, it was just like he seemed like a little quirky, a little fun.
Okay, but you like him?
I like him a lot.
But do you feel like you are the monkey? No.
I don't know if I can say I feel like I'm the monkey, but I feel like I identify with a lot of the monkey's personality, maybe.
Oh, okay, because you're influenced by that quirky personality. So it's more like it's a companionship. So he's like a friend to you when you're playing Donkey Kong.
In that game, Life is Strange, I think you mentioned it, Grace, or some of it. The character is Max or something.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I mean, and like a little bit more pretentious and like less self-aware.
Oh.
Maybe I felt like Max is kind of like me, because she's all very like.
Oh,
I
really?
don't even know how to.
Life is Strange?
Yeah,
Are you
Life
talking
is
about?
Strange,
Cool,
yeah.
cool.
So that may be one that it's an actual human character who I can kind of identify with, lose myself in.
That's very interesting. So that's one example. Very, very good. Others?
This is Pajama Sam.
Pajama Sam?
As a child, this is like my favorite like game series. So Pajama Sam is like a little boy who goes through like various adventures, and you need to help him like complete a task. So for me, Pajama Sam is like kind of like dramatics what Donkey Kong was, like a kind of a childhood companion, but also like somebody who I very much saw myself as, you know, a kid who didn't clean their room, a kid who just kind of wants to like have fun and do whatever I want, but not really see the consequences in some of the things that you do.
Wow.
So the fact that like some of the things that Sam would do and find himself in, I could see, oh, this actually kind of teaches me a lesson about like why he's doing some of the things he's doing and kind of what the point is.
So you're like actually learning lots of things with Pajama Sam.
Yes.
Through his stories and his missions. So you actually identify that you and Pajama Sam have lots in common, so similarity. So it actually contributes to your identification process to the character. So does Pajama Sam cry in the game?
I think he does at some points, but it's not like part of the game.
Oh, okay.
But-
So it's just randomly crying. So
Right.
you don't cry with him.
No,
'Cause
I don't.
although you identify with him. Okay, so you still like that.
Right. This is more of like a smaller version.
Okay.
I'm sure there's like Red Dead Redemption. When you are like Arthur Morgan, I feel like even though he's like a bad guy, a person who I would never commit all of these crimes and all of these things.
Wow.
Obviously, because I would be in jail.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel and I identify with kind of who he is and the things that he's doing.
But it feels like you're empathizing with him.
I guess.
Because empathizing is different from identification, and that's a very good example. And want you to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you think it's no? I'm not saying that it's not identification. I'm just asking your perspective. Because you're analyzing your emotions.
Since we're going through this in that way, I think you're right. I think in the matter of like identifying myself with a character, I feel more that I empathize with Arthur Morgan than identify.
Yeah, because is he the main character that you can control?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So there's a justification why he did the crime, right?
Yes, you have to. There are some missions that it requires you to like rob a bank or.
But there's a story.
Yeah,
behind
there's a story
it
behind it.
Okay, so it's justified, like morally justified reason.
Yes.
So when you play him, you can actually empathize what he's thinking.
Because you're the one who's doing it.
But you feel like you are him at some point.
At some times, yes.
Ah, cool.
That's why, because.
But do you feel like you're him while you are robbing the bank?
No.
No, right?
I think this is one of those pick and choose like when it is and when it isn't.
Why it's very interesting because when you are playing the game is the affordance afforded by the digital games that you're playing this character. So when you are making decisions and all things, this kind of play will make you feel that you are the character because you're controlling him. And there's a story and he talks and he will probably interact with other characters and then you get to know his emotion. So when you're identified with him, but when he's robbing a bank, although it's justified, but you still have your moral
compass,
like standards.
Right, okay.
So that's the point when the plot talking about you're robbing a bank, you are still aware that you are robbing a bank. So when you are doing that decision, it's because you're forced by the digital games. But when you're doing it, you still have your consciousness. So your morality says it's immoral for you and it's a bad thing. So that time, maybe you can observe next time, maybe that's the point your identification is broken at that time. Because the process, it's fleeting all the time. So identification is not, on and off and switch. It's like fleeting all the time. So maybe at that time it's broken, but you're forced by the game and then you're like, I actually enjoyed it. So you actually can still identify with the character when you're robbing a bank. So it's really up to everyone. It's a very delicate and very interesting process. So it's not just identification and there's your moral standards and modules that will come into play. So video game play experience is very complicated and very hard to study. Okay, Noah. Thank you, Grace. Excellent.
When I was playing Metal Gear Solid 3.
Still soldier game? Is that soldier game?
Yeah, it's like an espionage game.
Why? You're a soldier in reality and you still play soldier games online.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, so this game is like an espionage game and it's like a very narrative driven game. But like I actually really identify with the main antagonist, or like the final boss of the game, because she's yeah, it's a female character. She's the mentor of the main character. And she's actually sort of like, I guess, like the main enemy at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And you're like forced to like confront and kill her. But at the end, you find out that she's actually a double agent and she's working for the same side as you are. It's just like it's her responsibility to take the fall and like take the blame for like everything.
Oh.
So like when and at like the end, the main character like basically realizes like she's a hero, but like no one will ever know.
Yeah.
And so like I identified with that a lot after I came back from Afghanistan.
Oh.
Because like when I was like working in Afghanistan, it's like you're basically there, you're like an agent of the government in another country, and you're doing questionable things to and for questionable people, but like the public doesn't really have any knowledge of that because like that is not what is.
It's recording, you know, as
Yeah.
so as you know. Okay.
Yeah, that's just like like the experience of like a person like serving in the military, like in a war zone,
Wow.
isn't the experience that like the public is privileged to, like when you go home and like watch it on the news.
Yeah, definitely. And that female character didn't have that kind of privilege to get to be public.
Yeah,
known,
like it's like
and she got killed.
Yeah, it's like a very like isolating experience,
Yes.
and like there's like a lot of like individual sacrifice where you
I
like go
know.
out there and you're like, well, like I'm just doing my job, but then like a lot of people would like I guess like have like it's like very easy to like question the morality of that when you're not put in that position yourself.
I know. It's a totally different level for you. It's like because you have prior experience and you know what it is in that context. So as opposed to your playing experience, we were probably just shocked at that twist at the end. But for you, you were like, this is actually happening in real life, and you really appreciate that kind of narration describing this. So I think it's very different. So is it identification? Your relationship with that female character?
I mean,
is that identification?
I think there's like identification to a degree, but then there's also, I guess, some like, it's like if it's not me, it's like I see like somebody else I knew, or like this like other guy like in my squad, or like our interpreter or somebody like that. They were like in that exact same position. They were some like morally like ambiguous person who like it wasn't until like the dust settled and like everything was over and they sorted it all out when you realize like, oh, like this guy is like a good guy or hero or something, but like the whole time everybody thought he was just like some disgusting like self-serving person or something like that.
Oh, okay. So you're seeing more of the story, seeing more out of the, you know, the what is depicted. You're seeing another layer of facts and what happened there. So it's a very complicated feeling. It feels like you know what's going on when you see that ending coming. But I'm just interested in whether you still with that female character. Are you saying that you happen to be in that position before?
I would say like that, like in some way, like I would almost say I empathize with her more and I identify more with like the main character.
Yeah,
because he's in that game, like he's like the protege. He's still like sort of new to this, so like he's naive about what's happening.
Yeah.
So I would, in some ways, I would kind of see myself like before and after my experiences.
And it's very interesting because you're actually a soldier in real life. So when you are playing that character, the male character, the main character, do you like yourself come to the game more often than the character's characteristics? What I mean is that when we are playing the game, we just follow the character stories and we try to accept what the main character's characteristics and his emotion and everything. But your role is sort of complicated because you know a lot about reality and all things. So I'm just curious, when you playing it, are you enjoying the gameplay, or like did you do the suspense of disbelief that I don't care whether I'm a soldier or not, I just play the game and enjoy the plot?
Yeah, I was able to do that. And plus, like, Metal Gear Solid tends to be, like, kind of over the top in its storytelling, like, anyway. So, like, I think to really like enjoy that game,
Oh, okay.
you
Cool.
have to be like I don't think there's any illusion that any of that could ever happen to begin with. So you just kind of go in and enjoy it.
Oh, okay, okay. So it at least is an enjoyable experience for you. Okay, so empathizing and identification is different, right? Okay, and we actually talk about the imitation or the modeling when Grace talked about that Pajama Sam, and you actually took him sort of took him as a model, and when he did this and he got this consequence, you observe and then learn, and then you feel like, oh, you can actually do the same, right? So it's actually modeling. So when there are different relationship between you and the character, their identification. So what is identification? When we listen to your stories, you're talking about empathizing, you're talking about an imitation, and you like that monkey a lot, Maddox. You say so it's liking is right, and there's also similarity that you feel like you have a lot of in common with that Pajama Sam, and Noah had a lot in common with the protege and the mentor. So there are different things happening. So in this paper, Cohen is trying to define what is identification, and he defined the context of movie and novel, so it's different in video games. So he said identification is a mechanism, so it's a process through which audience members experience reception and interpretation of the text from the inside. So inside, it means that from the character's head and from what happens to character, as if the events were happening to them. So you have to really distinguish between empathizing and identification. When I really appreciate Noah and Maddox and Grace sharing their 3 precious experiences with the game characters. When they're talking about their association with the game characters, there's actually identification and also empathizing. It means that you understand and you feel about them. That's empathizing. And identification, it means that all the game events are just like happening to yourself. That's identification. So yeah, there are lots of developments of identification. So when you are writing a paper, you can actually look at this paper and then imitate what Cohen is trying to talk about, a concept. So when you're doing research, but most of you have to do thesis when you graduate, right? So you have to really define a concept or a construct. Here in this paper, the construct we're talking about is identification. So you look back and to see what previous literature has done and what said and what they have defined about identification. And Cohen, what did he find? He found out that there are so many inconsistencies in previous definitions. They're all talking about different things. So that's why he has to write this theoretical paper, really illustrating what they are. So see, in 1992, they said one can, they talk about different definitions of identification. So they said it's an adoption of the messages or who they identified, or if they have strong feelings or connection with the characters. So there's a long development, so I'm going to skip this, otherwise I won't have enough time for this. You guys can look at that in the paper. And what is happening? It's just there's a magic happened that okay, cool, thank you. So so here are the questions that Cohen proposed. He's curious about what different engagement, like empathizing, liking, or identification between the character and the audience. So this is what we're going to talk about. So here when you do the research, you look at what others said about identification. So Freud talked about identification as a non-conscious imaginative process. So it's non-conscious, but is it possible that it's when you are unconscious all the time when you are watching a movie? Because we always think about ourselves when we watch movies, right? But if you do not think about yourself when you watch movie, you probably are happy because you enjoy the movie. Can you analyze your experience when you watch movies? Are you just thinking about all about the movie plots, or you think about yourself sometimes? Any, like when you are watching a horror movie, do you think about yourself? Well, sometimes it was like, I will not do that. It's like they will always do stupid decisions. For example, like, oh, I will go out and look for others, and if I'm a African American character, I'll die pretty early in the part of the movie, always like that. So it's interesting that Freud think that education is a non-conscious, and you have to imagine that. And in 1974, the other scholar, starting with the character W, who knows how to pronounce that? Oh, Wuhan, thank you. So he talked about it's different between identification and imitation. So what is imitation to you? Imitation means that there's a model there and you imitate his behavior because you want the consequence. For example, you imitate, you talk about this joke and then you got more popular. So that's imitation. But identification is that when character does this, you just go through that. You feel like those things are happening to you. So Woolham said, identification involves imagining being someone else and imagining behaving like someone else. So imagination is a key mechanism here. And battle hymn is a battle hymn. It involves sharing their perspective and internalizing their view of the world. So it's talking about sharing the perspective. So perspective taken is also very, very similar to identification. Yeah, so here, identification and imitation. So here, it's a definition from Cohen. It's an imaginative experience in which a person surrenders consciousness of his or her own identity and experiences the world through someone else's point of view. So I think the 4-degree identification really takes time and takes technology, because this process is easily being interrupted. For example, the phone just rang or the Uber just called you, say, hey, I'm here, pick up your delivery. So I think identification can happen when you are in VR. Yeah. Well, identification in VR is totally another story. We'll talk about that later. So we first talk about identification with you and the character in the movie. Is it possible that you surrender your consciousness when you watch a movie or read a book? Like when you're reading the novels, do you feel like you're just the character? Yeah, actually the novel doesn't have any videos, but you feel like you are totally into the story. You feel like you're transported to that story world. So that's interesting identification. Okay, so I'm going to skip to, there's so many definitions. So here, this one. So here, the Cohen has pointed out there are different mechanisms between you as an audience to the character. The first one is identification, and the second one is called parasocial interaction. Third one is liking, similarity, affinity, and the fourth one is imitation. So let's see, what is the biggest difference between identification and the 3 other mechanisms? I have to assume that you have read the paper. What's the biggest difference?
Like the positioning of the viewer.
Yeah.
For identification, the user just regard himself as the character. But for the 3 other concepts, they just think they are themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So here, identification, it means that when you are watching the movie, you feel like you are the character in the movie. So, or when you're playing the game, you are controlling that character, so you are the character. The view, when you are looking at the story, you position yourself as a character. That's called identification. But the other 3, you still yourself. You're just looking at somebody else doing and having her or his story. So what is parasocial interaction? You guys know what is parasocial interaction? It means that when you are, for example, you watch a sitcom for a long time, like Friends. Do you guys know Friends? Or Emily in Paris. That's the hottest sitcom that everybody's talking about on Facebook right now. I still don't know what it is. And so Emily in Paris, for example, if you watch it like every day, you feel like Emily is your friend. You feel like, or if you watch Friends, there are 6 characters in that sitcom, right? You watch it every time you have your lunch, you have your dinner. Gradually you feel like that they are your friends. So when they're talking about their conversations, you feel like you are part of that friend. So you're like having this conversation with them. So parasocial interaction means that there's a fictitious or the guys or the character or the real celebrity, when they're talking to you, but they're actually talking to the imaginative, like common, but you feel like that anchor woman is talking to you. For example, you watch TV news every day and you are so familiar with the anchor man or the anchor woman, and you feel like, and the anchor woman today, she said, "Good afternoon, everyone. How do you do? Do you have a good morning so far?" And you feel like she's talking to you, and you're like, "I have a good day," something like that. So that's parasocial interaction. So a lot of TV shows, they use this mechanism to do social networking, social network marketing or promotion. For example, for sitcoms, there's some actors, they would use their character and have a YouTube channel and just talk to you using that character. Remember, there's a, what's his name? It's a very funny guy, Hanover series. The Asian guy.
Ken Jeong.
Yeah, Ken Jeong. Yeah, are you talking about Ken Jeong? No. Ken Jeong. He was in a sitcom playing a doctor. So he had this YouTube channel and then videos, and he will answer to people's question about symptoms and all
He's
things.
also a real doctor in real life.
Oh, I like medical.
He's a real doctor.
Yeah.
In real
Like a
life.
medical?
Yes, like a
Really?
medical doctor.
Really?
He does acting on the side. Yeah.
Really?
He's like an actual doctor.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, so he did. Okay, I got a wrong example. I'm going to use the other example like that.
Just
I didn't know that because he's really good at acting. He's acting that he knows something, but he didn't know everything. So I didn't know that. Cool. Okay, good to know that today. But the other example is that some actors, they would use some sitcoms characters and they would create blogs, and they would use that kind of characters and talking about and interact with their audiences, or they will have their Twitter account as a character and interact with you. So you are interacting with some characters using Twitter. So that's parasocial interaction. So it's popular in lots of promotion activities. And so you see the nature of process that you are still you. You are you're interacting with somebody else, and you feel like you are actually friends, but actually you're not. You are strangers to each other, but through the media, it's a very you feel like you are his friend or her friend. So the basis is attraction, because you like the anchorman or you like the anchor woman, and the positioning of viewer is yourself, and associated with phenomenon, it says attachment to character and text, keeping company. Feels like they're your friends, so keeping you a company like every day. So parasocial interaction is another theory here. The third one is liking, similarity, and affinity is very simple. So it's an attitude. So it means that you are still you, and you actually like this character. Like like 暮光之城, Twilight. Yeah, sorry, it's like 7 or 10 years ago. I don't know any of the new movies with a really likable character in it. Emily, I don't know, is Emily likable? I don't know, I didn't even watch that sitcom. Any other movie that's likable character? No. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The guy who, I don't want to say that. The guy who died at the end of the movie.
Iron Man.
You just popped it. I didn't say that.
Like 2 years ago.
And you haven't seen it.
I haven't watched that movie yet. I haven't watched a movie yet, and I know he's dead. Okay, so I'm like, do you like SpongeBob?
Love SpongeBob.
Okay, so that's liking, that's affinity, but that's not similarity because we're not SpongeBob, so we're not Sponge. But similarity, similarity, it means that if you can feel that you are the character very quickly if that character share lots in common. For example, if the movie is talking about campus life, and the character happens to be a master student, and he's taking an international program, then you feel like, oh, similar to you so much, and they're having trouble with the professor. So you don't have the problem with the professor, but you feel like it's very similar, and then you feel that you share a lot in common. So that's similarity. That's not identification unless you feel that you are the character. That's identification. Okay, so for me, when I write my studies, I position liking, similarity, and affinity as a prefactor to identification. So if identification is a process and underlying mechanism, it means it's always being positioned as a mediator. A mediator means, what is a mediator? A mediator means that if there's a stimulus here, for example, a movie, and we say it's a stimulus, and there's a response. Response means your emotions and your behaviors response. Okay, so your emotion and all things. So identification means it's a mediator. So identification to this. So this is a mediator. Mediator means that it has to be between A and B, or stimulus or response. So in psychology theories, we always love to study what happens here, what happens in our minds, and why it can explain what happens to this. So identification. So here, when I talk about similarity and affinity and liking, these are all being positioned as factors, like predictors that would contribute to identification. So there is a stimulus, but in this stimulus, there are different, factors that will help audience to identify with the character sooner. So remember we talked about the affect disposition, like in the first week of the class, affect disposition. In the beginning of the novel or the movies or any of the story, they would describe the character very quickly using all different cues and different plots, and you will form this liking or affect disposition to the main character very quickly. For example, that you love the character, so you can go through the rest of the story. If you cannot like the main character in the beginning, you will not enjoy the movie. You probably won't be able to finish the movie at all. So there is a movie called No Country for Old Men. Do you guys know that? It's a Oscar-winning movie because it's really hard for you to identify with any of the character. You're like, identify with this character, and then he died, and you're like, I never understand why the evil person pick his victims, and it's based on chance and all. So it's a very weird movie, but it's actually very excellent. So they're playing with these mechanisms. You can see that. Okay, so here. You position yourself as liking, so you like that guy, you like that character, so that's fandom. You're the fan of that character, so that's different from identification. And the last one, imitation. Imitation means that because you want to imitate the behavior. So here, imitation means that you are modeling this character. So you observe that, oh, this character, she does this, and so she's popular among her peers. So if you want to be popular just like her, you will imitate what she's done. So And in lots of movies and novels, you are actually imitating different characters to learn how they socialize with others and socially interact with each others, and you sort of will imitate that. So that's imitation. So it's interesting when next time when you watch a movie or something, you can, or sitcom, especially like 10 series sitcom, you can observe yourself to see whether you are influenced by the characteristic of the characters. For example, will you be reckless, just like Hawaii Five-O, the main character will be reckless all the time and just kill people and without any cautious of the dangerous things. And you can see how that characteristic of the character influence yourself. It's very normal that if you watch lots of like sitcoms regarding Chinese palace and lots of princesses like go against each other. I don't know how to translate that. 宫斗, how do you say that in English? Like fight for the king, fight for like emperor story, Chinese history drama. All the girls are fighting for the king and they are having this I don't know how to say that. So they are mean to each other. So when they're mean to each other, you can observe whether you are mean at that time. So if you watch that series for a long time, so that's imitation for sure. And if you watch Doctor
Strange.
No, there's a guy. No, like H. Like I forgot. There's a genius doctor. House. Thank you. H. Yes, House. Like House. You watched House before? If you watched it, he's actually mean. He's mean to people, but he's very brilliant. So if you watch it for a long time, observe yourself whether you will be mean to others, like saying some really sarcastic things to other people. Definitely you will become that a little bit because you identify with him for a long time. You are a little bit being affected by that. So that's very interesting that you can observe that. So actually I've already, that's the most important part about this paper, but he also proposed the measurement for identification. And he said there are 4 dimensions of the identification and also the measurement. So we'll come back to this after the break. So let's have a break for 10 minutes and I'll come back for the other 2 papers and this one. Okay, cool. 我才讲到这边，然后就1节课了，我真傻眼。No, I said it's already 1 period of class and I just had the progress here.
I signed this.
Is
that okay? I don't know what it means by ID.
This is your
passport
number.
Hey. Oh, okay. I'll put that down.
A, yeah, I'm sorry, I read the wrong chapter. And then B, we can't access the platform right now. It keeps saying that it's
Probably.
I have trouble with it too. Every time I
now?
do.
Yeah, right now. It says that it's not.
In general, I have to reset my password every time I log in.
Yeah. Yes. I did the same thing. I don't know why.
Like, I have a
have you access? Are you connected to the Wi-Fi?
I've done the Wi-Fi. I've done my own. I've done my hotspot. I've done everything. Yes. Okay. Great.
I will ask Kenny to directly upload the readings to Facebook. How about that? Yeah. Facebook is more.
But my apologies.
Yeah, it's fine.
Alright.
Yeah, but so the platform is not accessible.
Yeah, it's not for some reason. It's because I had no problems.
It's a really bad platform. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I had no problems yesterday, but today for some reason.
Yeah, just today. And yeah, I also had to reset my password when I logged in.
Yes, I
Every
did.
time I go to log in, I have a password manager that says
And it
my
said
password.
no.
Yeah, and it says
I always have to do forgot password.
yeah,
and then,
every single time.
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I had to let the school know how bad that platform is.
If we can, yeah, I think readings up on Facebook would be great.
That's why I never use like school platform. But you know, this time they require us to.
Can you hear me?
Active like.
I can hear your voice.
Have to use that.
Thank you. I need to please. So many people are talking right now. I need you to please fix the form because let me see.
Well, it's not replacing anything. It's just
the ID number.
Sort of hybrid.
Here,
they are trying to digitalize
the ID number in the form actually means your passport number.
So the school is trying to use the course, and if you consent, we record it. We also upload for students.
Can you hear my voice?
I know. So
how about we use typing because I can't hear clearly.
Kind of cool.
Okay.
So it's actually
let me see.
I mean that one of that platform. I'm sorry, but I will ask Kenny to upload readings to.
Thank you so much.
As soon as I graduate, I'm getting ready to
Okay, thank you.
We're getting
and please send it to me today because we have to hand it in tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit urgent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I don't.
You don't like to
I
share
don't
your
upload anything to
private life.
And then also there's like social media scraping, like people are collecting information on you.
You mean like social stalking or?
No, it's not stalking. It's like they call it like scraping, and you like scrape a bunch of people's accounts, and then you can use like big data analytics.
Okay. You're using the, but they can only scrape like public accounts, not private ones. With a private one, you can never scrape data from them unless
you own the platform.
Sold it, or unless Facebook, leaked the data too. Well, we're sacrificing our privacy for social capital. 在中国大陆是用 QQ 吗？微信，
然后还有微博，
可是都很像 Twitter 嘛，都很像 Twitter。
微博比较像 Twitter。对。
微信就是跟 Line 一样。
对啊，所以就没有像 Facebook。
之前有一个
是因为外面 camera 都直接有。
早期有一个叫人人网，就是
可是后来没有。
同学之间，就不是所有人的。
那为什么就没有像 Facebook？
后来被微博就是禁止。
微博不就是 Facebook？
微博不是
很像，就很像的。
很像吗？
其实不太像。微博跟那个
它比较接近就是这个，不是有这个发文，
但是它只能发140。
那微博像是什么？就是 Facebook。
像 Twitter 啊，
对，它只能发140。
那为什么就没有像 Facebook 这种 ？Can give it to me?
Do you have a?
Thank you.
Wherever you want me to put it.
Okay. Here.
Do you have the QR code?
Oh yeah, you're right. I always forget that. 明明，我们这堂课的那个 QR code。
Oh yes.
我们这堂课要扫 QR code。你有帮我准备吗？
有在我的资料夹里面。
可以帮我。
那我现在
拖
打开给大家。OK， 谢谢。
I always know I have to remind us all the time.
Sorry. Last semester was sort of a mess with that, but then this semester, like, some of my professors are like really kind of pushy about it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just don't
Yeah. So it's anyone? Yeah. Yeah. I did summer at but like it's good. Very, very good. I did intensive, so I did. Yeah. So I would. Yeah.
哦，是的，魔法攻击。你加入
So I had a scholarship, so I don't know, but my friend I think told me it was like 4.
OK。
就是要自备。
就是但是那个空调还有就是可以吹暖气，对，可以吹到30度。
It was 20. Actually, I want to say it's like 20.
还是不是有调整？
你是住在台北？你是在那里工作？
Are you wanting to learn?
太山上了。哦，那就是这样的。山上
I would recommend. It's very. I would like. Very excited. So I took summer. Yeah, if you do it comes in its 4 year.
一个大胖胖的大。
Guys, I need your attention here. Undergrads on the left, graduates on the right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you can come here.
Yes, it's good, but it's intensive because I think yeah, go please. But I find that the Chinese pair is more like yeah. So if you're interested in just kind of learning some Chinese, this is fine. But if you're interested in learning Chinese, like traditional, like and yeah. I think it's better. I think this is okay.
了解一下智能翻译。
Yes, exactly. I just so this is just something so I haven't so practiced something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, it is.
是看书不是看 paper 就还好。但其他部分，因为我们最近有一段时间coding 啊，或者做一些然后理论研究是比较少，但是我们就是论文很广，可以做，然后可以做那个是一个毕业作品，可以做很多东西，是吗？对，但不是毕业作品上有用，就都是文字，有没有轻松一点？轻松一点。
就是做一个作品，然后把那个作品写成。
对，就是写这个作品的那么好，对，那很快乐啊，可以做一个说题游戏。好像你们的话，一定要做这
因为我们其他课程也有包含一些表演，对，也有。
Because I read the articles that were on like
有，我们好像我们专业是要办的，就是对，如果你是毕设的话，一定要办。但是那个展览可以在正式在一中分人啊，分化，主要是钱的问题。 我考虑的主要是没人，选 NT 也不开谁，选 NT 你是什么毛病？选 NT 其实他不开，但是下面那条路本来就不是随便都能进啊，因为我们那个主要上课地方，对，昨天真的太可怜了，我们主要上课地方在选，就是那个就在山里看那个，在山上跟山上。
Okay, have you guys scanned the QR code yet? Yeah. Okay.
但是他说可能做完他们
Oh, does it work on your
own? 然后就找了有没有地方出去，他可能太吓人了，经常听到幕后从那个车道出去。你几点回家？9点多吧。就触报警报器。 是合理的，太抽烟，然后花1万块出去。
你抽烟吗？
没有，我昨天在一中被锁起来。对，一中晚上他会9点。他会锁门，我们出不去。
那你怎么出来？
后来地下车道。
哦。
然后我们说抽烟可以触发那个警报。
哦，okay. But in the first place, you need a cigarette. Okay, so there are 4 dimensions in identification. The first one is to empathize and to share the feelings of the character. See, it's different. I mean, it's different of empathizing and identification, but it includes empathizing in this construct. And the second one is the cognitive aspect in sharing the perspective of the character. So you can feel, you know what the character is thinking. So that's the cognitive dimension. The third one is motivational. So it means that you actually cheer for the character. You want this character to succeed, not to fail. So that's the motivational side. The fourth one is absorption of the degree self-awareness. So it means that you were absorbed to the text, to the story, and to the character. So you lose your part of your self-consciousness. So that those are the 4 dimensions of identification. So here are the items. Can you categorize each of the item in this 10 item scale into the 4 dimensions that we just mentioned? So the first one, while viewing program acts, for example, while viewing Twilight, I feel as if I was part of the action. Part of the action, is it empathy, cognitive, motivational, or absorption? Oh, yeah. Absorption, yeah. While viewing X-Men, I forgot myself and was fully absorbed. Oh, that's absorption because it's absorbed, right? I was able to understand the events in the program in a manner similar to that in which Edward understood them. Edward is not the main character. Bella, yes. I was able to understand the events. No, I can't understand with falling in love with a vampire. Okay, I was able to understand the events in the program. Yeah, so similar to Bella's. So that's what? Yes, cognitive, because it's understanding, so it's cognitive. And I think I have a good understanding of character X. Cognitive, definitely. I tend to understand the reasons why who and who does what he or she does. Cognitive, yes. And then while viewing the show, I could feel the emotions, blah, 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 portrayed. Empathy, yes, because it's emotion, right? During viewing, I felt I could really get inside someone's head. Cognitive, because you get into someone's head. Yeah, so that's cognitive. It feels like you can understand what they mean. Okay. At key moments in the show, I felt I knew exactly who was going through. I knew he was going through. Oh, sorry. I felt I knew exactly. I think that's empathy. Sorry. Did I just say Chinese? I'm sorry. You know what that means? Should be empathy. Okay, the ninth one, while viewing the program, I wanted someone to succeed in achieving his or her goals. Yes, very good. When someone succeeded, I felt joy, but when he or she failed, I was sad. Empathy. Oh, awesome. This year was very smooth. I remember one year we were all stuck and at some point, I don't know why. Okay, cool. So that's the measurement. So the last one, I want you to know about this paper. They talked about the antecedents and the consequences of identification. So think about antecedents means all the factors that would trigger identification. The consequences are, if you identify, then what you will feel. So in the paper, they talk about, for example, similarity, affinity, and these are the antecedent factors. You can also say, hey, technology can be also antecedent factor. For example, interactive versus non-interactive media. For example, the third paper, I compare video games and watching a movie. That's interactive. The difference is interactivity, right? So if you are controlling the character, it's easier for you to have higher identification. But if you're just watching a character in the movie, having a story, the identification level usually is lower, right? So technology affordance can be also a predictor. And so can you think of any other antecedent factors that's triggering identification? What things will trigger identification?
I think the first person view.
Oh, first person view, very good.
In some shooting game.
In some shooting,
just, watch the screen and that's what you see. You imagine it's your eye.
Yeah. So do you guys know what he's talking about? The first person view or the third person view. In third person view, you always see a character's back or hands or usually a back and a whole character, and he's running around, so you're following where he's go. So that's third person. But the first person, you see what the character is seeing. So that kind of setup, usually first person. Actually, the empirical studies also show that first person shooter people in first person perspective will have higher identification level than third person. So it's already being supported. So great job. Other things, Grace?
So there's like you can do character customization. So you can literally make the character.
Cool. Yeah. So you're talking about the practical side. So the customization, it also relates to autonomy, right? So you customize and make, because whether it's similar to you or not, when you customize it, you devote yourself into it. So it's you, like part of you. So it actually can trigger the adaptation. I love that. Great job. Any other thoughts?
In the simulation design, for example, the Japanese relationship simulation role-playing games.
Oh.
The game tell you that you are the main character. And you are in a relationship with other characters. So the game tell you are the character.
Yeah. What's the name of the character of the category of this kind of game? AVG or scout game, or I don't know.
Both of them have.
Be like that. Oh, okay. SLG. What's that?
No game or AVG game. And
AVG.
you can name the character. You can name the character.
Okay.
Your name. So the game tell you are the character.
So what stands for AVG game? AVG. What stands for that? Stands for what? AVG stands for animation.
Video.
I don't know, video game. I don't know. Anyway, that's a category of the game, and SLG stands for what? I don't know. And Gal game stands for I don't know. Google it yourself. Okay. So this type of game, so game type, that the game mechanism will also trigger you to identify with that. You know, the president Tsai Ing-wen, she had an AVG game when she's running her campaign. Do you guys know that? I didn't know that. I gave a talk to the government 2 weeks ago. They invited me to talk about games for policy making. So and then I knew about that game. I didn't know that at all. Probably, yeah, like 总统府. You know that, and we don't know that.
I know in another class.
No, 柯文哲 is another game. We specifically talking about Tsai Ing-wen. Yeah, so and you are the student, high school student in the game, and then somehow you were transported to, I don't know. Yes. Do not click that game because there is a virus in it. 2 weeks ago I clicked it. It was, virus. Is it? I don't know. Yeah, and they didn't know that until I told them, and they're like, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so mechanism, other factors. I love your ideas. Very good observations.
I don't know if I'm right, but I would say gender.
Oh, gender? Why?
Like either in movies or in digital games, like male participants or male audiences tend to
the male
characters. A female will identify with female characters.
Yeah. So excellent observation. Actually, the empirical studies also tested out this, and they swap their gender. So for example, let the male identify playing a female character, and they found out that they have higher identification if they play the same sex character. So male playing the male character and female playing the female character will have the greatest identification. And also racial. So these are characteristics of you and the character, like the racial, like if you put African American into Y character, they have lower identification. But if the enemy or the out group is the other racial, they will have greatest enjoyment. I don't know why. So the in-group and out-group dynamic is also interesting. Okay, so for the antecedent factors, there's a lot of them. And consequence. Let's talk about the consequence of identification. So identification is likely to increase enjoyment, involvement, and intense emotional responses, but it is less likely to produce critical stances toward text. Do you agree with this? It means that identification will lead to greater enjoyment, and you will have greater involvement and greater intense, like greater, like more happier or sadder, or greater intense emotional responses. But they said you lose critical analysis a little bit, or you would not be that critical. Do you agree with this? You can actually, it's a theoretical paper. So when he talked about this, these are all hypotheses. It can become one of your thesis topic or one of your course term paper. It's like, does higher identification to lower critical thoughts? That can be a really sexy and really good thesis topic. You just design experiments and design it to have higher identification and lower identification, and see which one is, people can be more critical to the text. Why do you think that they said it will be less critical to the text if you have higher identification?
You might like the characters more. So
you try to defend her. You don't criticize her dressing or her attitude or whatever like this. For example, you identify with Iron Man, but Iron Man is a sort of like not polite to other people. So you sort of not critical to his like politeness to the social and the way he treats other people. And so that's the way. So if you apply this to, for example, like Afro games and political games, if you play games like developed by Professor Tsai Ing-wen, maybe you like her, or it really depends, because if it's in the context of politics, if you don't like her and you play the game, you still don't like her. Probably you even don't like her a lot more than that, because it's a polarization. It's more like if you defend yourself from the message, so there's no identification. So if you want the identification to occur, usually those games are made for like swing voters or for people who support her. So if you're her fan, you play the game, you can identify with the character in the game, or you identify with the president herself, and you sort of not lose the critical standpoints to tour her, things that she's proposing to do in her 4-year presidency. So this is actually very interesting. So lots of brands, they develop this sort of enjoyment or entertainment content. So they make a game and you can play with the products and all things. We will talk about that in the African Week. It means that when you are highly enjoy the gameplay, you lose your defense toward not buying this product. You're more easily to be persuaded to like the brand, have a better attitude, and buy the product. So think of any of the games that's related to brands or related to persuasion. See whether if you have higher education and you have lower, criticism toward the message itself. Have you ever played with any of the game that contains persuasive messages?
Some movie, not game.
Some what?
Some movie. Some movie film.
Film.
Yeah. Some like some milk advertisement. In the movie.
Okay. Advertisement in where?
In food. 变形金刚.
Oh, Transformers. In Transformers, so it's like, oh, okay.
It's a Chinese brand.
Oh, like, okay. So they put their products directly in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you directly like it, and because the character is driving that car, and so you love that brand. You do not criticize its performance or whatever.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's one example. So yeah, these are consequences. Think of that. The last question I'm going to ask you is, why do you think that education will lead to enjoyment? The author spent a lot of time talking about this, like a 3-paragraph section. Guys, do you read the paper? Why do you think that education will lead to enjoyment? In this paper, the author said because it's decreasing your self-discrepancy. For example, when you are you and the character is the character, but when you are identified with him, the self-discrepancy, the differences between you and the character is diminished, is lowered, and you actually like that feeling because it's like fulfilling your imagination to a better self. So he talked about the ideal self, for example, Iron Man. So it's a more powerful version of yourself, and that you want to do that. But I find the logic problematic because it's ideal self or better me is more like imitation or more like modeling, right? So, but he talked about that when you identify with the character, the lower self-discrepancy will lead to enjoyment because you just like it. So I'm curious what you think. It's like, yeah, Noah?
I think it could be catharsis, like you can achieve like some kind of emotional release or fulfillment via the character that you can't achieve in real life.
Yeah, you're right. He talked about this also, but he didn't use the word catharsis. And you said it's a way of catharsis that to be someone else and then come back, and it's actually a good feeling. Actually, it reminds me to another recently developed new theory. It's called T-bot, T-E-B-O-T. It means temporarily expanding yourself self-boundary. Yeah, so T-bot, temporarily expanding your self-boundary. It means that in our ordinary life, we love to watch other movies or play digital games that can expand our self-boundary. Our self is always student or professor in this classroom, but outside of the classroom, we're just ordinary people eating, drinking, washing our hands and clothes, and then go to bed, and then having another class, and have fun and have entertainment. And entertainment is the way that we try to expand ourselves. So we watch a movie, Emily in Paris, so you expand yourself in Paris, I guess, or you expand yourself through playing that presidency game to expand yourself into this politics realm, or you watch Transformers or Harry Potter, so you expand yourself into this magical world, and you feel like catharsis, just like Noah said, you feel good because you're sort of like escaping or whatever you feel happy and to have like fulfilling your different thoughts. And so by expanding yourself temporarily and then come back, it's actually good for your life and your mood. Because in this class, if we talk about mood management theory, we always use media content or entertainment to make our mood better or make ourselves less sad and make ourselves aroused a little bit or more calm. So see identification through identification with some character, it leads to enjoyment, because you can expanding yourself to the boundary is expanded. I love that thought. Any other thoughts? Very theoretical, because you guys are a master's program. We need to have cognitive training. If you have any thought, that'd be great. Wants to say something?
I think this might be an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a video game that there is a character in the video game, and you want to skip the class without being noticed by the teacher. So you have to help him to skip the class. So I think almost all of us have this kind of experience. We want to skip the class without being noticed. So I think when we help him to achieve the goal, like we identify his behavior under these circumstances, and when he achieves it, we feel happy. Like we have this. Oh,
okay. So because it's the consequence is enjoyment, because you succeed. The character feel joy and you feel joy. So that's why you also helping achieve this. So your enjoyment, and then also you identify with him in process, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I identify his happy and enjoyment.
Because when you identify with him, you feel his emotion. Okay, cool. I love that. Thank you. Any other thoughts? No? Yeah, that's probably all. So this and I want you to really we talked about this and its definition and how we measure it and what are the 4 dimensions, and we talked about antecedents and consequence. Okay, so since his definition and his theoretical paper in 2001, there are lots of research developing. And the second milestone of the theory of identification developed, the second one is this. They expanded the construct of identification into video games. Remember when Cohen talked about, when we looked at his measurement, he's talked about when the character feels joy, I feel joy. See, it's a dyadic relationship. It means that there's a character still not merging together. So in Cohen's context, identification is always you and the character. You're just trying to merge together. But his measurement is not enough, because the measurement involves two human beings. One is the character, one is you. So Clint, they argue that in video games, there's no longer you and the character, it's just you. Yeah, right? So that's what they're arguing this. So that said, in Cohen's work, there's a non-interactive relationship. So in Otley and Cohen and Hofner, they all talked about different sort of identification. For example, Cohen talked about identification, character identification, and Hofner, they talk about wishful identification. Wishful identification means that you wish to be that character. For example, you see Iron Man and you feel like Iron Man is so cool, I want to be him. That's wishful identification. That's not character identification. Remember, character identification only happens when you watch the movie or when you are playing that digital game, because you are the character. So only happens when the media content is ongoing or when you are engaging with the content. So what is the character identification in digital games? So you all shared all your perspective when you had the relationship with the game characters. So do you think that identification in VR is stronger?
I think it is.
Why?
I think it's just the physical element of it. Like you look down, you can see your hands.
Yeah.
And so it's
because
like,
you're embodying it. That's your body. But in video games, you look down, you also see the body and your hand through this screen. through the computer screen, there's still distance between you and the screen. But in VR, you look down to supposedly where your body is, and you see your body in VR. So that's embodiment, co-location embodiment. So that's actually in VR, we usually won't talk about identification anymore. We just say embodiment, embody in someone else's body or embody in someone else's characters. And most of the VR content didn't even give you a body, right? You're like, you only have hands. You don't even have body. But if you play social VR, for example, we didn't play social VR last time, right? This time we're going to let you play the social VR. It'll be wonderful because you will have your own avatar. You can look at the mirror and see who you are, and then you use this body to interact with others. That would be awesome because the one my students created for me looks like a male African American male. So every time you use that body in the rec room, people will come over and say, "How can you be this ugly? You are so ugly." Yeah, people are very impolite in VR world, but they're funny. So it's very interesting to have your VR body. Okay, so that's identification in games and VR. So why do the authors argue that identifications in games will lead to enjoyment? Okay, so let me talk to you about what is identification in VR. Yeah, I'm trying to look at one certain PowerPoint slide. Sorry. Here. Okay, so you can see this slide. The Cohen here, this is dyadic identification. So Cohen said, this is the character, this is you. So when you watch the movie, you feel like you are the character. Yes, but you are still you, and the character is still character. And here, the me here, the green one, is actually what Clint is trying to argue. They said this is what true identification is. They said it will be temporarily alter your self-concept into the player's concept. So it's a temporarily self-concept alteration. So it means that at that moment when you are playing it, yourself, you still have yourself, but you merge yourself with the character self. So when you're playing the game, it's the green me who's in the game. So it's for example, in the third paper, I asked them to play Grand Theft Auto 4, and they all play the same character, Nico, in the game. And in the game, there's one mission he had to kill all the enemy, like shoot them, because he has to save his cousin. And the other mission, he played bowling with another girl. They are competing with each other. They're in a date. So when you are playing Nico, trying to kill all the enemies, trying to save your cousin, at that moment you feel yourself very violent. Why? Because you're like killing everybody, and he's like constantly swearing all the time. He's like, fuck off and all things, swearing all the time. So you, although you are not saying those things, but you're controlling him, you feel like you are violent at that time. So the third paper, when I share with you later, talk about this. So this is true identification. So Clint, they talk about that. Hey, we're in a video game, so you still have your consciousness, but when you're trying to control this character, you are merged with his characteristics. So that's why, if you play this character for a long time, you probably be affected by his characteristics. For example, you might talk like a gangster. Yes, thank you. I'm tired a little bit. So you talk like gangster, and you walk like a gangster, and yeah. So this is what he's talking about. And self-concept means that the concept about yourself. So normally your self-concept would be what self-concept do you have? student is a self-concept. Yeah. And what else? Like, do you feel you're peaceful or violent? Peaceful, right? You're not violent. Yeah, but when you are playing that game and do all the violent things, at that moment you will associate yourself implicitly with violence because you're just doing that. You will not explicitly say, "Hey, I'm violent," but your cognition will link yourself with the violent concept quicker than ever. So that's what Clint saying. So they said the degree of freedom here is bigger than this. It means that the distance between you and the character. And here the true adaptation only occurs when you are playing video games. And the third, the monadic adaptation means that you are you and it's free play. So it can actually occur in VR. For example, it's open simulation or open world and you're in it and trying to socialize with each other, or you play some characters to react the history or something. Those free play or role playing, that's monadic adaptation. Okay, so that's what Clint said, and I think that one is also a very important milestone for the development of digital games research and education. So they did a really good job, and I only put four slides here. Yeah, so if you look at their paper, you get to know more about their argument. Okay, 16 minutes left. I'm going to talk about third paper. Third paper written by myself, and I wrote it. I tried to position identification as a mediator, and it worked. So I proposed a moderated mediation model. It means that I am examining the role of media interactivity and see whether people will have greater identification lead to different outcomes. So here, if you look at this, it's called general aggression model. What is general aggression model? It means that we have our personality, or some people are violent in nature, some people are not that violent, and we have different personalities. And when in different situations, if it's triggered our violent thoughts, for example, somebody just bumped into you so many times, like purposefully bumped into you and make you feel mad or something. Now you enter this internal state. You feel mad and you feel aroused. It means that 激动. And the third one is cognition. You directly think of, should I bounce back or should I punch him? So those are you're thinking about different scripts of the response. So you went into appraisal. You talk to yourself. Should I bounce back? No, I'm a really great person. I don't want to do that. So you either go through a thoughtful action. You call him and ask him to stop walking and ask him to say sorry, apologize to you. Or you have an impulsive action. I don't care. I just want to bounce back. I don't want to slap him or something. And then you do the social encounter, and then it's a violent behavior and it comes back. So there's a short-term influence and the long-term influence. So here, but in this study, I only care about the situation. So we use different media to engage in different content, and some of the content are pretty violent. So I want to know this. A lot of scholars, they said, if you look at the violent content in media, you will have greater aggressive affect. It means that you feel a little bit aggressive, and your cognition is filled with aggression, like aggressive related words and thoughts, and you will also have physiological arousal, means higher heart rate and higher blood pressure. Okay, so I am going to position interactivity as a moderator. What is a moderator? It means that this relationship will probably be stronger when we play interactive media, which is video game. And this relationship will not be that stronger, or there would be no relationship when there is when we use a non-interactive media. So, and if we look at the literature, I'm sorry, it's in Chinese. I didn't, but here's some English. Do you think that if we compare television and digital games, do you think television or digital games will influence people's aggressive affect and emotion and cognition more? Is it television or games? Which one can make, if I give you the same media file and content, but one in TV, one in video games, which one will make people more aggressive? You can say no, I'm not aggressive at all, even though I watch the file and content. I agree with that.
Is the person already violent in nature?
Oh, yeah. We don't care about those because there's so many participants, so they're natural occurring factors. It means that we can control that. But now I'm asking whether, regardless of all other factors, when we control them, when they're all consistent together, if we only consider television or digital games, which one do you think has the more powerful effect on audience? Yeah. Sorry.
Television.
Why?
Because, like digital games puts like the onus on you. It gives you like a sense of responsibility for carrying out violence.
So you think the television, and so why television?
Because like it absolves you of responsibility. Just like a bystander.
Okay, so you feel like that's not your thing, but okay, so you think that the television will be more powerful because you feel that in video games I'm just controlling this, so I get to make my own decisions. So I feel like television is more powerful. I thought it's because television features real footage, so the realism make people like more aggressive. I don't know. Noah? Or still, yeah?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just probing your thoughts, but yeah, the other people, thank you.
I think the video game is more powerful.
Why?
Because when you watch the movie, you just watch that videos.
Yeah.
And you are not that character. But in the game, when you're playing, you just control the character and you do that violent thing.
In action, okay.
And so you maybe some people might want to do that scene in real life, so they get to use the television about the digital games to act out their desire in reality. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Great.
Kind of the same thing. I would imagine that video games would be more powerful because then, like, even in like Nick Bowman's like video thing, he talked about how like the position of like the controller of the guns, like literally learning, like putting a gun together.
Yeah.
Like you now have that ability to do that. Versus like you watch somebody do it and you're not really sure what you're doing.
So you're in person doing
right.
Rehearsing all the actions and there's even one game that you constantly have to do this to. Like you put a rope. Is it? Hitman? Hitman. Oh, Hitman. Yes, Hitman. And then you can do this and try to kill them. Really? So it's a extra game. You actually do this. Hitman. Yeah, I remember Hitman is a very violent man, but I'm talking about the natural mapping action. You're doing this in real life.
Actually, when I'm in primary school, there are very famous series names 射雕英雄传.
Yeah.
And then there is a female character named Mei Chaofeng. And he's a very powerful skill named 九阴白骨爪. One student watched this series, then tomorrow all the boys will the study
You
skill,
do this?
they beat each other.
Yeah,
I
learn
think
this.
maybe some violent television more powerful
Oh, okay.
because students may imitate their action by character.
Oh, imitating. Okay, but it's from television, right?
Yeah.
No, television and all. So actually, from the academic, you want to say something? Yeah, please.
I've heard a story. Like, there's a series and it's about a girl who was a sexual assault or something.
Oh.
And she successfully killed the guy because she applied all the skills from what she learned from
Television?
No, from the game.
Oh, what game?
The violin game. So she successfully killed the guy because she said she knew how to use she knew where to stab when she's using the knife.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Not cool.
She's really a very little girl, and the guy is strong, big old guy.
So she killed him in real life?
Yeah.
Hmm.
When she,
But she's very motivational. So she got sexually assaulted before she played games, right? Probably.
Yeah.
She probably got sexually assaulted, and then she's very motivational to explore the games and learn all this. So the motivation explains her things. Okay, so, well, nice thoughts, but in academics, one group of scholars, they thought that the television would be more powerful than digital games because they thought it's real people doing real behavior featured on television. So they think that's the graphic quality and the realism is the key in television that makes people imitating. So just like Chen said, people, especially kids, they imitate people's behavior on TV. So there's one stream of research thinking that television would be more powerful than digital games. But recent empirical evidence that digital games are more powerful than television, especially when we talk about the interactivity will elicit or induce a higher character application. So that's why when you're playing the game, you're always a character. So this is interactivity that we talked about in the beginning of the class. So if we use social cognitive theory, which is social learning theory by Bandura, he talked about there are two types of actions in the game. One is inactive learning. It means that we learn everything through ourselves. We directly learn things. For example, if there is a fire, you put your hand in the fire, you got burned. Now you know that fire is dangerous. So now next time you won't put your hand into the fire. That's inactive learning. But there's also observational learning. It means that you can observe other people to do that and then learn things. For example, there's a fire in front of you. So instead of putting your own finger into the fire, you ask your brother or sister or your classmates to, hey, put your hands in the fire. And you observe they got burned and they cry a little bit, and then oh, actually fire is dangerous, I shouldn't do that. So in real life, we do active learning, like direct learning or the observational learning. But in mediated life, it means that through computer or through movie or digital games, there are also chances for us to learn. For example, mediated inactive learning or mediated observational learning. So mediated inactive learning indicates playing digital games. When you play digital games, you encounter this and then you got stabbed or you got all the consequences. These are also inactive experiences. If you play Rec Room or the social app, VR app in VR, you learn how not to do some bad things to people using your avatar in VR. That's mediated inactive learning. There's also mediated observational learning. you watch sitcoms, you watch movies, they are acting and all their behaviors are all like observational. Why? So we use this too to theorize that the mediated inactive experiences like playing video games and mediated observational experiences like watching somebody else playing video games or through movies. So in 1987, Silver and Williams, they conducted this study. They are curious about whether digital games will have more powerful effect than movies or cartoons. So they chose these two similar. The first one, do you guys still remember what this is? Space Invaders. Remember why Japanese designed this game? Huh? Because not Cold War, but the Second World War, the atomic bomb to them. So Japanese felt that people should not fight people. People should fight aliens. So they created this game so they only fight the aliens. Okay, anyway, so he used this as a video game stimulus. And do you guys know what cartoon it is? Road Runners. The bird is Road Runners. Is a type of bird. And runs very fast here, but the fox will do everything mean to the bird and try to catch the bird and try to cook them or make them their food or whatever. So it's a action cartoon running all over the place. So that's violent as well because the fox is doing all the violent things to the bird. So they compared this. Guess which one is more powerful, like have greater effects than kids. The cartoon. If you feel the cartoon is more powerful, raise your hand. And if you feel the Space Invader, raise your hand. Why? I'm almost falling asleep. I'm like talking like in 2 hours and now I'm, yeah. If you observe that, I was trying to yawn during my talk. So which one? It's a very hard job. If you can fall asleep all when you are still lecturing, that's a really tough thing to do. Try when you present. Anyway, why? Why do you think his cartoon is more powerful? Yeah?
There's a lot of like emotional, you feel a lot of things watching this.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Emotional
like a series
arousal, yeah. Yeah, and this one, there's not even a character. There's just tank and some shooting alien spaceship, right? Yeah, and Noah?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So there's certainly in a similar vein. There's identifiable characters, and there's also, like, in the course of, like, one of this cartoon, there's, like, several narrative arcs.
Yeah.
Like, the coyote, like, buys, like, a firework rocket or something, and then he sets it up, and then, like, he lights it, and you expect to see him do something, and then it explodes in space.
Yeah. So it's actually violent, and there's a narrative in it. So you go through with the character and feel with them. So there's emotional response. So yes, and the key problem is how can you compare apples and orange? They're different content. Yeah. You can just say it represents video game and this is a cartoon, but it's 1987. You guys weren't born yet, so you know the technology is limited at that time. So we'll come back and see how our other scholars they compare and go through this stream of theories later. Okay, so let's come back at 3:12. I'll finish this soon and then I'll let you guys do the presentation later. Cool. You guys are energetic. You don't fall asleep? It's like I almost fall asleep.
We've been working on the presentation. I'm tired.
哦，就是啊，关于那个禁用，
对
我后来发现，因为我在另外一个计划的时候，他在跑禁用手续，我才知道说原来我们那时候跑的那个是
他只
切家宝，对，有个正式，
对，好烦哦。
所以
为什么要切结家宝？哦，因为保费的关系，
就是
他那个保费不能够回溯。
对，
所以他
先弄，
可是其实你没有正式的禁用。
对， 然后我有问人事是说什么叫做正式的禁用，他就说是
就是重跑一次就对了。
他说是计划成熟之后，可是我不懂，
完全听不懂
这什么意思。
对啊
然后我就
所以我要签哪这边吗？
签对这边的计划主持人这边，然后我就反正我的结论你知道，就是反正他只要过了，我就可以登录进去，
好
然后我就要登录看看。
那你有帮我问那个什么课程？课程什么？研发费，对不对？
研发费
那个是要你吗？还是学校会自己弄？
那个我还没有确认。
好，你帮我问研发处或者什么。
它跟讲师费是同个。
对，可是他的课程研发费是另外一个东西，你就问他说那个是要你自己去就是你自己去报吗，还是什么的？
如果不是我自己报，会是哪里报？应该都是我们提进。
对，可是我以为是这堂课要结束了，然后学校才会转给我们。
对，
因为课程研发费是给老师嘛。
对。
那给老师的话是要我们也要自己去跑吗？是说我们现在跑了就会拿到了吗？还是说要等课程结束以后他才会给我们呢？
就是它会有一个那个造册系统。
对。
然后系统里面登进去之后，它有分。
对。
款项。
对。
然后你就应该就是要选。
刚才你就帮我问他说那个课程研发费是什么时候给？
我觉得，因为我们现在计划都还没有通过，感觉我觉得应该。
可是已经通过啦，公文已经下来啦。
但是
就是计划经费已经
不能，就我连员工编号都没有，我本来是想要开始跑那个核销手续，可是我没有员工编号，就是我不是正式的员工，所以我不能做这件事情。
他有说什么时候？
他就跟我说计划成熟时，然后我就在追问，我就说那如果计划成熟，我要怎么知道这件事情？他说意思就是你登录进去后，你会可以登录。所以我就
好烂啊，好奇怪。那我这边也要签吗？
不用，就这一张。
好。
然后我今天会去人事室，我就再问他一下。
好。课程研发费好像不是问人事室，应该是问瑞英还是什么？或是主计室。因为我知道 Nick 也有课程研发费，就是有那个10几万的是要给 Nick， 然后那个绝对就是等到学期节目结束以后才会给他，是因为
就应该都会是学期。
对，就是要那个一定是学期末，是因为他要看他的录影，要算他是不是满几个小时，什么时候才会给。可是就是有别的课程研发费，你就去问一下他大概什么时候可以拿，这样就是不是你要去研发，还是他自动就会去？是你要去核销报，还是他自动会
进系？
对，就是机器人，所以是你还是学校自己会弄？
应该会是，如果是跟讲师费一样的话，就会是，
那应该
就是直接学校会把钱寄给老师，就是要。
对，我知道，可是你还是要用，
就是我要填进去说多少。
可是因为已经有我们的账号，所以应该是这样。只是说，就是你要做这件事，还是学校要做这件事？对，你懂我意思吗？
谢谢，我觉得应该是。
不过是收水，对不起。我一直搞不懂那是什么东西，我上台我也查不到。哦，所以是这样子的念的，所以是意思是我们可以多发展其他什么
你说初六呢？好像不是出了一个结果，出了一个片段，出了个 logo， 但是他最近不是都有点成功了？对啊，真的很梦幻，在期待他的星空，我在期待他新的辐射，梦幻联动会不会黑曜石是跟辐射的梦幻联动？很高的，他最近出了个废品，哦，我看到，但是他有什么固定？
战机居然有点怀疑，
我知道，但是固定视角，这个年代玩起来有点累，你知道我的意思吗？就是它那个辐射角，我记得辐射2它不是那个辐射3、辐射4那种，1跟2是固定视角，那个年代那个气氛好，确实好玩，好游戏啊，发现刚才就是那个拉啥呀？拉啥？意思，我不知道意思是啥。之前还有几个问题。
收水商人。这边灯是灯出。这个我有，可是我没有每天都看进去。是我都有看，我就发手机。我没有意思，是我换其他的。对。
我问他就是要不要走，对，我那时候之前设置的问题就是，他是否就是玩完这个 identification 之后会不会直接有在那个场次往下？
哎，这是好问题。
就是好像已经超过今天，我觉得是，但是我有点好奇，就是会不会玩我去彻底改变一个不会，那你可以，不会，可以自问自答，就是
非常神奇的教育了。
I have a few, just not yeah. It's funny because I put this on, I think, in college when I was an undergraduate, and it's been there since 2016, and I just haven't taken it off. I've just left it even when yeah, so it's just like, yes, but also I forgot. Because yours is.
这现在就要等他对啊。Okay, the last period of the class, we're almost done.
Okay, let's come back. Okay, so the other scholars they compare this. Let's see, it's called dig dog. I was like dig it. I was like no, it's not dig it. It's dig dog. So you played that before? Is it fun?
I like it.
Okay, cool. So is it violent? Not
You,
really.
like, shoot little guys with a harpoon and then pump them up until they pop like a
Oh,
balloon.
really? You can do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's how you
cool.
beat the enemies in it. Either make a rock fall on them, or
Yeah.
you like pump them up.
Oh, when they explode. So it's actually, when you think about it, it's violent, but it's abstract. It's a cartoonic violence. So they picked this as a violent video game, and they picked Rocky as a violent movie. So the effects, which one is more powerful? Dig Dug or Rocky? Second one is Rocky. You think it's Rocky? What about you guys? Rocky. Yeah, you guys are correct because see, it's Rocky here, and he's like pumping other people, like punching other people, and like this with this body. So of course, still apples and oranges. So here we if we compare this, people always argue and criticize that, hey, these are different. You can't just compare video games and movies. So recent literature, we always added another conditions, which is recorded gameplay. So this and this is different because of interactivity. So because video gameplay and recorded gameplay, they are exactly the same content. And this one differs between the modality, so because a video game is a different mode from movies. So we come back to this, and I did an experiment when I was a PhD student in Michigan State University. So I designed this as a 3-condition experiment. The first one is video game playing, and I chose X-Men Wolverine. It's a super violent game. If you play it, you have this claws, and you use the claws to kill people. Yeah, and at the same time, this is digital games, right? And this one is, so see, they're so similar. So there's no issues of graphic realism because this game is a movie game. So they are released on the same day when the movie was in the movie theater. You can also buy this. So it's an excellent experiment stimulus. So I chose this and let participants, they came into the lab, they either play a video games or they either watch a recorded gameplay played by somebody else, or they watch a section of movie. So the stimulus is 2 fights. So I wrote some stories talking about X-Men, and the first, when they read the paragraph, and then they either play the game or they watch somebody playing the game or they watch the section of the movie. And then I wrote another story and they read it, and then they either play the second section of the video game or watch somebody's video game play in the second section or watch the movie. So this is the design. So this will be the story part. For example, introduce who's X-Men and blah, 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 and love of his life and next 3 years where the happens until one day, blah, blah, blah. So it's a narrative to lead them into the story like that. Okay, so this is the results, and you can see that the video games had the greater affect, which means the aggressive emotion than the recorded gameplay and the movie. So it means that those people who are playing the video games, they had the greatest aggressive affect, and also they had the greatest aggressive or violent cognition. So how do they measure cognition? They present you a list of words that those are fragmented words. It means that there are blanks in the word. For example, K-I blank blank. How do you feel the word K-I blank blank?
SS.
SS, and then you are kite, T-E, the other things, kill, L-L, and kick, K-I-C-K. Yeah, so it has different potential to be filled into different words. So they will give you like a limited time, for example, 3 seconds. So when you see that, you have to fill out the words like in the first thing in your mind. So when it can really access what your brain or what your cognition is filled with, what kind of content at that time. So like you said, if you watch a romantic comedy, after that you would definitely say KISS, kiss. And if you killed and use the Wolverine play it, and after that you probably will think of the first word as kill. So they use this kind of thing to measure within the, for example, 50 words, how many words you can fill them into the ones. And not every word can be filled with violent ones. So, and you calculate the percentage. So here, in those who play video games had 21% of the violent cognition. That is, which is greater than the other two significantly, and their blood pressure is significantly different as well. So this is just empirical evidence that playing video games really will have greater, outcomes, whatever it is. But why? But it's a 3 conditions, so there's no, control group first. And the second one, why would it had a greater effects? The underlying mechanism is still not examined. So we came to the 3rd journal article in this course. I designed another experiment. So this time it's Grand Theft Auto 4. So I put it into a 2x2 design, which is a balanced design, because we have play versus watch, which is interactivity. Play is play video game, watch somebody else play video games, violent and non-violent. So non-violent is a control group. Okay, so and here is the violent condition. So they had to kill everyone and save his brother. And the second one is also competition. Remember, kill everyone is a gun fight, so it's a competition. So here you design another competition, but it's a peaceful competition. So we play bowling together. Okay, so we ask only male students come to do the experiments. Why? Simple. Why only male students can come to participate in the experiment?
To gauge the effects of hypermasculine beliefs.
No, not that complicated. No, because
be consistent with your group.
Because it's an identification study. So, and the character is male. You don't want them to mess up the, if it's female, then it's because it's female, so lower identification. So you want to control everything. So it's just a methodological design. But I love your responses. Super cool. Okay, cool. So the measurement, these are the measurements. So we use this. Here comes the results. It's called moderated mediation model because you are the master student, the smartest group in this campus, smarter than the college students. And also, yeah, there's a college student here. Yeah, nothing. And you're the smartest group in this campus. Because, I just gave EMBA class last week and they did not care about theory at all. The bosses only care about how they can make money. So, having those courses, you only need to talk about implications and cases. You never need to use your brain to talk about theories. But so you guys are the smartest group in the campus right now. So moderated mediation means that there's a mediation and there's also a moderator here. So in addition to the mediation, there's a moderator. So here's the theory that I propose to explain why people always think about why we will really become a little bit aggressive after or when we play video games. And here's the model. Because when you are more interactive, higher education makes sense, right? When you play video games, play versus watch video game. Video game playing always elicits higher education because you're controlling the character. So higher education will lead to these outcomes only if you're in the violent condition. If you're so this is a moderation effect. If you're in a peaceful condition, you will feel yourself more peaceful. It's interesting. If you're in a peaceful condition, when you play bowling with others, when you play the video game, as opposed to watch video games, you feel yourself more peaceful. But when you're in the violent conditions, those who play the video game have the higher adaptation and lead to greater aggressive emotion, and also they feel themselves temporarily more violent. So if you look at this, so it's a moderated mediation model. So the mediation and also the moderation here. So this one is published in Journal of Communication because it actually provides a rationale to explain why people, when they play in the violent condition, they would temporarily have greater aggressive outcomes. Temporarily is because of adaptation. So remember the first article that we talked about this class, we talked about the theory. And the second article by Kling, they expand that into the video game. And the third one, in this article, we positioned and we tested this as a mediator, and we put it in the media violent and non-violent context and find out actually it's a moderator here. So it's a totally different perspective from the other research. So if we look at the results here, it's interesting. The automatic self-concept is there's a direct interaction. So here, if you look at this, the y-axis means that how you perceive your self-concept. If it's more lower means what? I have to think about it. Let me think. Lower is more violent, and the higher is more peaceful. I think so. Yes, higher is peaceful, and lower value is more violent. So here, if you look at the green line means violent conditions. Those who play the violent condition significantly perceive themselves as more violent than those who watch the violent gameplay. And if we look at the blue line, which is the non-violent group, they play bowling together. This is self-concept, right? So those who play the bowling video games, they perceive themselves as more peaceful than those who watch the gameplay. So this is very interesting. Those, if I put you in different contexts, you will feel yourself more aligned to the characteristic of the character that you control, because you have more higher adaptation, and because you're playing in more interactive. So if we look at this is the model to explain this. So this is the third one. The previous two papers are theoretical, and the third one is empirical. So we put that into a real situation and propose this model. So it actually can, explain a lot of real phenomena. For example, there's game streaming, so people are, actually watching other people playing games. So their effects will be totally different from those people who play the game. So this is the development of identification. So there are other research talking about identifying with soldiers, identifying with terrorists, and identifying with different race, gender, or first person, first and third person. They have already played those around, but there are still lots of other topics we haven't tested yet. So you can actually dive into it and see what you can actually become a thesis or term paper idea from this class. Okay, so my turn has ended, and I will let the group to do the extended presentation. They have found an article to share with you regarding the latest development of identification. They will also, lead some discussion, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's welcome them. Ooh, the first group. Next week, we're not meeting here because next week is online course again, remember? So next week, please do watch the video online by Nick Bowman. And in 2 weeks, we're visiting the lab again. We're playing other applications like VR, social VR, tourism, advertising. So next week, study at home. In 2 weeks, we meet at the lab. I'll post on Facebook and remind you guys, okay? Do you guys enjoy the course so far? Yeah, but I'm the one who's falling asleep.
刚才有声，
Okay.
刚才有一点。
Oh, you guys are in the same group?
Yes,
we are.
in Chester.
Cool. Oh, four people.
Four of us. Standing up the whole time. Yeah.
Definitely. 一定可以播的。Oh, that's not my folder.
Oh, that's mine.
Oh, no, you can say.
Oh. Hi everyone, I'm Edmund. We are Group 1.
Ooh.
Our team also Henry, Maddox, and Chester. And today we will introduce the mechanism of identification. We will introduce a very new literature about how players be affected in the game of GTA 4.
GTA 4.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Five. Sorry.
They
A little nervous.
they're really hardworking. They gave me a list of like 4 articles and let me choose which one they're going to present. And I chose the longest one.
You did. It's okay.
Yeah, at first I want to have a little game. Please guess the game character according to the clues. A bald man and a pistol. Maybe somebody play this game.
Okay.
Actually,
Hitman.
yeah.
It's a hitman and a pistol.
Hitman. And who know his name in the game?
No, not.
Agent 47.
No,
No
no
one.
one.
Yeah, AM47.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
my
very
God.
famous. Yeah. Second is also bald man and
God
S.
of War. No.
Yeah, God of War.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
God of War.
Excellent. God of War, and his name is Kratos. And
I should have let you guys lead the discussion. It's more interesting than me talking.
And third one, a cowboy hat, and
the pistol.
Arthur Morgan, Red Dead Redemption.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's the only one.
Red Dead. Anyone can just shout it out. We have a couple more.
Yeah. It's a little difficult. A monster and a silver blade. Very famous game. RPG game.
Diablo? No, not the sword. Oh, Warcraft. No,
No, similar to it.
Warcraft.
The studio is from Poland.
Witcher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Witcher.
You said studio from Poland.
Oh, Witcher.
Yeah,
Okay.
Witcher, and his name is Gerald. And the last one is maybe more difficult. Chinese Qi and
Chinese dress.
yeah, and crossbow.
Huh? 花木兰. Sorry, I looked at that dress and I was like, I'm so sorry.
Actually, it's a very famous female character.
It's Laura Croft.
No, it's
Chinese guy.
Ada Wong.
yeah. It's Ada Wong.
What?
This
Oh,
character,
mine is
yeah, but has a Resident Evil.
Wow, how many video games have you played? Is your job playing video games?
I'm old.
Oh, I'm older than you.
Yeah, so when we talk about this character, we identify them not only by his costume, his weapon, or his equipment, but also will share his goals, feelings, thinkings, personalities, or interests. So some scholars just assume that one player play a game, he will imagine himself as the game character, and maybe he will lose self-awareness and with the character. So just like Cohen summarized, there are 4 mentioned. We just have a short glimpse of this. First is shared feeling, second is shared perspective, third is shared goals, and the last is self-awareness is lost.
Absorption.
Yeah, and the first is empathy, shared feelings. I just found a very famous game named The Last of Us 2, and there is a video in YouTube. And this is a very famous, yeah, very famous plot. And the man in this is Joel. He is the main character of The Last of Us 1, and there has another female character named Ellie. Yeah, and Ellie have a very strong relationship with Joel, like daughter and father. Yeah, and in this plot, at the beginning of the game, Joe met this guy, and Joe just stopped the connection with Ellie, so Ellie searched for Joe. When Ellie entered a house, he fight this guy, and I also found a streamer show his reaction to this plot, so we can observe the streamer's expression on his face. Yeah. Sorry.
That's Last of Us 2, huh?
可以调这个镜头，我觉得调到6分20秒。几分？6分20秒。
先拿滑鼠点到那里。可以哦，所以你是用 YouTube？
对。
你是直接镶嵌那个 embed 的 link， 没有滑鼠可以这里。Wow, just like a movie.
People literally film it like a movie.
Oh, really? Oh.
There are a lot of
We just watched the.
PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Reaction.
6分。
对，6分20秒。
Exaggerated.
Okay, this is Ellie. We just control this character.
Third person view.
Yeah.
哦，要关灯，要关灯。Please, yeah, turn on the lights.
这个吗？
可以按按看。I'm not sure.
Okay. Please observe the streamer's face. This is Joe. This is Ellie.
Yeah.
We can observe the motion of Ellie and streamer.
So why was he end up like this?
Okay, so we can see the streamer's face. He's very sad, heartbroken because he watched this thing, and that's same to Ellie. So it's empathy. A second dimension, anyone remember?
Cognitive.
Yeah. And it's a cognitive and shares the perspective of the character. And after this thing, I think most of us will regard this man a bad man. So we have the same perspective with the Ellie. Yeah, and the third dimension is goals. We have the same goals. Then Ellie embarked on the road of revenge this bad guy. Yeah.
Goals.
Yeah, share the goals, and he just wrecked her house and go to the abandoned Seattle and execute this bad guy one by one. Yeah.
Wow. So it's a group of.
Yeah, it's a group.
Guys.
Yeah.
It's just like The Walking Dead. It's like developed into against like different groups of people.
Yeah, I also found some concept Dr. Cohen did not mention, but I think it's very important. They will also share the personality traits. Like when you play a LPS game like this, you also think yourself being more courageous, stressed, cautious, aggressive, violent, or dutiful. Because you just shoot enemy, you are under pressure. So that's another aspect. And the last is this lost self-awareness. When I first read this, I find, oh, is it true? Am I really lost my awareness when I play some game? I think I can't find an example. Combine my experience, but when I saw this thing, it's also the last of us two thing. It's in the end of the game. This man is Ali. He finally fight Abby, who used golf beat Joe. And this man is another streamer. We can also watch his face, and we will find if he lost his self-awareness. Yeah.
I got to say mine. I have to take it.
Okay.
Ellie better not die.
It's just two people fighting each other.
Oh! No! Holy shit, Abby! No!
But at this thing, can you control Ellie?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not
we control Ellie. Yeah.
Oh, it's really realistic.
Yeah.
It's actually realistic. Whoa, it's just like movie. Wow.
Holy shit, she is still pretty strong. Come on.
Oh, and you see the blood.
Yeah.
Fuck. What does this do?
This man controls the controller.
Yeah. PewDiePie is playing the game.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I don't even look like Abby anymore! Do I really want this? What is this? Does it bring Joel back? No! I swear, Ellie. For Ellie!
This is over. Is this cussing or controlling?
It's the story. Yeah.
This is cussing, right?
Yeah. Okay, we can say this man just feel very concentrate to this to the game.
Wow, the game is so realistic. It's
Yeah.
like interactive.
I think it used the action capture.
Yeah, because when you like, stab them, you can see it. You're actually causing the bleeding from her shoulder or. Wow.
Yeah. So at that time, because it have very realistic graphic, and also the soundtrack, the atmosphere is very real. So I think at that time, this man just replaced his self-awareness with Alice. And when I remember this thing, I just think at that time I also lost myself because the narration is so impressive. So yeah, I think maybe at that time I really lost myself in a short term. Yeah, and the next is Eric.
So I would like to introduce a new literature. It's about the violent sexist video games, its effect on the empathy for female violence victims. So before jumping into the study, I would like to talk about GTA games. Like everyone play this game? No? Yeah? Okay. So GTA games is a series of action adventure games. So the main male characters are always depicted as hyper-masculine, dominant, and aggressive men. While in contrast, the female characters are portrayed as sexual objects, usually prostitutes or strippers, whose sole purpose is to entertain the main male characters. So, for example, if you after paying a prostitute for sex, you can kill her and then get the money back.
Really?
And, yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about your energy.
So rather than being punished for such behaviors, players are usually rewarded. Yeah. So I would like to show you a clip of some brutal scenes in GTA games.
folder 去。
哎，可以了，可以了。
Invincibility? Invisibility? What does that mean?
I think if he's hurt,
he won't get hurt.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah,
3
it's like-
minutes at it.
Like
Like-
invincible.
Yeah,
like
it's
you're
like very
powerful.
Yeah. How come we can get into that mode?
Drink wine or
Drink wine?
maybe.
Why?
Yeah.
Activated, so I think it might be a cheat.
It could be a cheat or not yet.
Should be a cheat because. Oh, no, he's going to die soon. Wow. Now every policeman is getting after him. Just kidding. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's actually a game that's not so serious. So that's why I'm laughing.
So I probably can't show you everything. So if you're interested, you can Google it. There's a lot of clips, brutal scenes, and also some sexual scenes as well. But it might not be appropriate to show you here. But yeah.
Remember, we're recording.
Yeah. Right. So. Right, I might want to have a review of previous studies. So previous studies show that exposure to sex-type media characters can have a real-world consequences. So in one study, male college students saw photos of sex-type male and female video game characters are more tolerant of sexual harassment against a female college student by a male professor. And in another study, female college students who embodied sexualized video game characters are more likely to view themselves as a sexual object, which in turn will increase their acceptance of rape myth. And in the third study, both male and female participants were more aggressive after playing a violent game as male character than a female character. However, none of these studies take into account the individual difference, also the underlying mechanism, such as participants' gender, the identification of violent, sexist video game characters, and also the masculine beliefs. So this study aims to examine all these effects. So here's the overview. The study investigates the short-term effects of playing violent sexist video game on empathy for female violence victims. And this study considers character identification as one possible moderator, expecting larger effects of the game contents for participants who identify with hyper-masculine, violence male game characters. And also participants' gender as the second possible moderator, assuming that the effects of game content could be stronger for male participants than for female participants. As a possible mediator, it's proposed that violent sexist video games reduce empathy for female violence victims by increasing masculine beliefs. So this is the overview of the study. And the procedure here is that the participants were randomly assigned to play different types of games, including female and male participants. And the first type is violent sexist video game, which is GTA Vice City, which include both violence and sexual content. And the second type is a violence-only video game, like Half-Life. You know this game? It's a first-person shooter video game, including video violence, violent content, but without sexual content. And the third type is non-violent video game. It's like Dream Pinball 3D. It's a classic pinball simulation game featuring different tables to play on. So after gameplay, the researcher conducted a series of post-game surveys, investigating the participants' perception of character identification, the mothering effects of participants' gender, the mediating effects of masculine beliefs, and also the dependent variables of how much empathy participants felt toward female violence victims. So Maddox will talk more about the effects of character identification and also her own experience of playing GTA games.
Thank you, Ori. Okay, so just a few more things here, because with the new literature we introduced, of course, it's a really interesting scope and it presents new ways to deal with these, especially gender-based violence and gender-based identification. So in the study that Ari introduced, they actually used an identification scale from a previous study. So they used wishful identification, similarity identification, and embodied presence. And so wishful thinking, we kind of covered that in the seminar earlier, is I want to have this personality trait, or like I want to be a part of this character. And then similarity identification, obviously how similar you perceive a character to be to yourself, we've covered that. And then embodied presence refers to the emotion of feeling embodied to the character or the immersion. So they stayed consistent with using these when they were measuring the different identification levels throughout this study. Okay, so Ari kind of touched on like the matter gender issues within especially like GTA games like GTA 5. In GTA 5, a big part of the game is going to the strip clubs. So one of the strip club is named Vanilla Unicorn. And you get this is a text you get in GTA Online when you get to rank 6. For the finest girls in Los Santos, visit the Vanilla Unicorn, objectifying women since 1984. So it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. Well, maybe not for a lot of people, but you know, so it's just that's the text that your character gets, and then you can go to the strip club whenever you want. So as already mentioned, games such as GTA display real-world violence that can occur in everyday life, a shootout on the street, which we saw a video of, a violent car crash, and then especially aggressive and violent coercive behavior toward women. And as already mentioned, these women are often either sex workers, they're strippers, or prostitutes throughout GTA, peripheral characters only there for the male protagonist pleasure and entertainment. So if you look online, a quick Google search, these are the two, like, there are lots of tutorials on how to get different strippers to your home, and then also you have effectively killing prostitutes in Grand Theft Auto 5. So there are tons of videos different streamers have uploaded, and so GTA is an open world sandbox game. There's an almost limitless number of behaviors you can exhibit, a limitless number of things you can do, but many of these behaviors and rewards are violent or sexual in nature. And so I guess I also wanted to talk a bit about it mirroring real life violence against sex workers. So of course we can't make the argument, we don't want to make the argument of you're going to play a game like this, you're going to go out and you're going to assault someone. It's not, there's not a direct link, especially if you're not a violent person to begin with. But I do believe it's helpful to kind of talk about these hypermasculine behaviors and this wishful identification of male players saying, oh, I want to be powerful, I want to have power over the women around me, I want to be able to go to a strip club and touch whoever I want, whatever it may be. Because as you go through GTA, you kind of unlock these abilities to do these different things, take someone home with you. These acceptance of rape myths as well can go deeper than just in the game. Like Ari said, players can kill her and get their money back. Those are things that happen in real life. And these behaviors are often not given appropriate consequences or even in the game rewarded. And so I think, that's what I was kind of thinking throughout this study as well, just the mirroring real life behavior and a lot of the stories that we read about violence against women and violence against sex workers as well. So,
So the result of this study supports the prediction that playing violent sexist video games increases masculine beliefs and decreases empathy for female violence victims, especially for boys and young men who highly identify with the male game character. So, character identification successfully served as a moderator that can influence male participants' behavior and empathies for female violence victims. And so, as the professor covered in the last 2 hours, video game identification has been considered as an altered experience of the self. So the players may perceive themselves to be actually the game character, assuming the character's point of view. So character identification has been also described as an imaginative process involving cognitive, emotional, and motivational dimensions that you can refer to the readings for this week. Yeah. Okay. So discussion.
And next is Chester will lead some discussion.
So just all you can see list of questions.
So first question is, will character identification have a long-term effects to the player? So one of the theories says that character identification can lead to enjoyment because it lowers your self-discrepancy. So what about after the game? Will you feel motivated to be like the character, or you still see this discrepancy and then it lowers your self-esteem or something? What's your point?
Because the basic assumption of identification is a temporarily when you are doing it, but here they're asking, so after you play the game or after you watch the movie, the identification disappeared, but does that have a long-term effect on the player? That's a good question and very hard to test.
I think it depends on the type of the game.
Yeah.
For example, if I play some board game,
yeah,
or some game, the world in the game is a fantasy game or magical game.
Yeah.
I know that I cannot do those things in real life. But for example, as I mentioned in the past 2 years, for example, the relationship game, I can do the things when I in a relationship with others, just like the character in the game. I can do this, but other games, some magic or fantasy game, I cannot do the same in real life. So it cannot. I don't have a long-term effect.
Okay. Well, the other thing that reminds me is the script theory, that we actually are storing all the scripts of our behavior from observing the media, watching a movie, or playing a video game. So if the behavior can become one of the scripts in your library of the scripts of behavior, it might come out in the future when you happen to have the similar context or environment. So maybe identification have a long term, maybe, but it really depends on people and person. Because I suggest them to discuss GTA character, because what he does is all this violent and immoral things, but in GTA there's a storyline. If you do the story missions, they will give you like justified reasons why you need to kill all the other. But in the sandbox style, people will actually do immoral things because they think it's fun, because you can do it in this game world, not in the real world. But for how many of you would actually enjoy killing the prostitute and get your money back? I don't know. Have you done this?
No.
No. I mean, it's afforded. The option is afforded to you. You can do it out of curiosity, but I'm curious about how you feel when you do that in the game. So that's a really tricky and really interesting part. You are afforded to do all these bad things in the game, but do you enjoy when you do it? And what kind of motivations and why you enjoy it? And that's very interesting to know. So I asked them, I challenged them to ask you, can you identify with the character when he's doing bad things? But actually, it's a bad question because you are the one who's doing the bad thing. It's a sandbox style game. So you're actually deciding to do the game. So any thoughts from the girls who haven't talked today? Anything? Any thoughts? Or any other? Can you identify with that? I'm just, yeah. It's a very interesting tool. Any thoughts?
I've never played that.
But by watching that video, any thoughts?
Probably not. I probably can't identify with them.
But you are the one who's doing it. I mean, because in Sandbox said, I mean, would you decide to kill the prostitute and get your money back?
To fit the story narrative?
No. It's a Sandbox style. There's no story will ask you to do that, right? Yeah. No story will ask you. It's just your freedom when you do that.
Well, probably not.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because of like the moral.
I'm just curious how many of you would actually do that in the game. What we know is a game, but will you do that? I don't know. How many would try to, out of curiosity, try to do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, just to look at it. Why? What's your motivation?
I think it's out of curiosity
Out
on
of
how
curiosity.
the characters can do.
Oh, okay.
How much
to
can
what,
you-
yeah,
How much you can do and
to what
explore.
extent.
Yeah, so you have to suspend your disbelief or something like that. So it's a game. So it's actually very intriguing, and the annotation process is very interesting and complicated. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts today? Have you learned things today? Definitely, right? We talked about annotation for 3 hours. Okay, let's thank the group for a wonderful and great discussion meeting. I especially love the mini game in the beginning to let us try.
Legend's idea.
Yeah, and all the other parts are very great. So I love this group's design, very great. So hopefully the rest of the group will also have the great presentation like them. Okay, so next week it's an online video again. So you also have a long weekend too. Wow, this course is awesome, right? Well, but I will check your do remember to type your feedback after watching the video, okay? And I will give you brief comments, okay? So I will see you in 2 weeks in the lab 320 to play implication of VR in 2 weeks. Wow, what a fun course.
What a fun course.
Okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Bye bye.
Bye. 只有他上线，那你要帮我去盯一下其他没有上线的人。
OK，就是传讯息
就
给他们
说你们都没有上线。
那剩下只有
是有一个还没有有一个
法国学生，
令仪还好，因为他可以非同步看，可是有一个是台湾学生，
可是他不是退课
哦，他这场有退了吗？不是，是大学生，广告系4年级，
他叫什么名字？
我忘了。
陈威宇。
不是，他后来有加权这堂课。
可是我都没有。
他现在还在录影，不要。
OK， 他也是。
因为他加权这个，不是后来有进。